podcast. I'm your host, Tani. Um, yeah, so sorry about me not actually posting a podcast since episodes of June. I know I said I'm gonna be more active over summer, but I kind of went downhill. But I'm back. We have a great podcast episode lined up. We have a guest, and it was a really interesting interview, really insightful. So that'll be all good. Yeah. Before we get into it though, I'm just gonna do a little roundup on some news. So obviously, well, F1, we had the Singapore Grand Prix this weekend. I mean, last weekend. Carlos Sainz started on pole and he finished on top of the podium. We had Lando Norris coming in on second, Carlos and Lando working together to make that happen. And third place, we had Lewis Hamilton. So if you guys didn't watch it, George Russell was actually third. Was actually second for a while. But then no, he was actually third. I'm sorry. He was second, but then Lando overtook him and he came third. And he was third for a while, but he crashed out on the last lap. And then Lewis became third. That's how the podium happened. Then we had Oscar Piastri and Liam Lawson scoring points in Singapore, even though it's their rookie season. So I think that's an amazing achievement. It was also Liam Lawson's third Formula One race. So that was great overall. Actually, off the top of my head, I can't think of what the next race is. But that will be one to look. I want to say Suzuka, but I don't know when it is. So that will definitely be one to look out for. Into the hockey side of things. So rookie camps are over. We've had some teams doing really well, some prospects really standing out in those rookie camps. We've got so then they'll be moving on to main camp, which really just sparks that the start of the season is coming. After a long awaited time, it will be great. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you guys are looking forward to it as well. On top of that, we have the international series, so that'll be in Melbourne, and that's against the LA Kings and the Arizona Coyotes. So both those teams. Thank you so much for joining today. You're my first official guest on this podcast. Yeah, so one of the big things for you apart from hockey is the Zhilkin Foundation that you've started with your boyfriend. So kind of one question, and I think this is a question you might get often, is how did this come about? What kind of led up to the build-up for the foundation to start?
Yeah, absolutely. We do get that question quite often. So yes, for context, I guess my boyfriend is a Winnipeg Jets prospect. He signed to the team. We're hoping that this year will kind of be his first official pro season, more than likely with the Manitoba Moose, which is their AHL affiliate. So that's sort of our relationship with hockey, and him and I have been together for a number of years. So we started a organization. It's called Zhilkin's Vision. So it's basically his last name and then vision. And we launched that just over a year ago on August 30th of 2022. We had wanted to start something for a while. Like I remember having a conversation back in I want to say 2019, which would have kind of been his rookie season in the OHL, and talking about how we really wanted to give back to the community and kind of get involved in a way that wasn't just playing hockey. So we started talking, but of course, with him being in his rookie season, there was just so many changes happening. It didn't really make sense to start anything then. And then COVID hit at the end of that year. So any plans that we did have or that were kind of beginning to come to fruition, we kind of had to just throw it out the window because the world was up in shambles. And then, once things kind of began to get back to normal, it was his draft year, which was a big, hefty year with a lot of things happening already. We didn't really need to add more to that. So again, put it on the back burner. So finally, about 2 months, just over two or under 2 months after the NHL draft, we decided this was kind of the time. And so we kind of knew we wanted to do something mental health related for a while. I'm a doc student right now, studying sports psychology and clinical psychology at James Madison. So it's something that I'm very passionate about and also am like actively getting an education in. So I'm very kind of involved in that world. And it's always been really big for him with hockey, just having resources available for mental health. And, I think he's relied on me kind of throughout his career a lot for mental health support, which, it's nice that he's able to do that with me, but not everybody has that. So, we sort of knew that we wanted to do something mental health related, and then kind of conversations throughout the summer kind of continued, and eventually we settled on this sort of this vision that we had to really kind of change the way that mental health is talked about and perceived in sports, where there's just a lot of stigma about it. And so really our goal kind of then became to break down that stigma a little bit and also just kind of become advocates for resources across different sports. So that's kind of the synopsis of how it came to be and what it is.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I just kind of like you said that you do sports psychology and I read that you were a professional dancer. So did that kind of have an influence as well as to why you chose to go, into that area of psychology? Because I know psychology as a whole is really, really broad.
Yes. Yeah, it is a really, really broad field. But yes, my sort of career as a competitive dancer for, oh gosh, I don't even know. This is kind of my first year not dancing actually. And I think I danced for maybe 20 years-ish. So a long career, ever since I was little. And yeah, my experiences growing up as a dancer definitely are a big driving force behind my interest in sports psychology. I think in dance, there's a lot of issues surrounding anxiety and perfectionism and body image and eating and things like that. Just given the nature of the sport, like we have to wear really revealing outfits that showcase a lot of your body, and you're kind of trained from a really young age to look in a mirror and pick flaws out in yourself. And that kind of stays with you, no matter if you're still dancing or not. So I saw a lot of those things kind of fly under the radar and go unnoticed in my career, and I was affected by some of them personally too. And so it was sort of those experiences in my life, and then also watching people like my brother and Danny grow up in a male sport environment where mental health was just ignored completely. So both of those things kind of combined, I guess, to really make me realize that this was an area that I was not only crazy interested in and really passionate about, but also that really needs professionals. So yeah, that's kind of how I got here.
Nice. I like that. I mean, definitely also an interest that I've been like looking into recently. Also kind of like a path I'd want to take with my life as well. So I really appreciated like when I found out about, the Zhilkin Foundation and I did more research into it, it definitely like stuck out to me like there should be more people who should be interested in things like this, especially after COVID and everybody, we found out the effects that it had. So, yeah, I applaud your efforts. It's really great. Um,
Thank you. Yeah, things are moving just very slowly. Like we're seeing change happen, which is really encouraging. It's just happening at a slower rate than it probably should be. So we're getting there, baby steps.
and with starting this foundation, so you've said that there have been things that have kind of pushed back the time that you wanted to start. Has there been anything else that you found like tough? Maybe you hit like a roadblock that kind of had that you kind of had to stop and like think for a while about what you needed to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say there hasn't been anything super concrete yet in terms of like a roadblock. I will say probably the biggest challenge that we continue to face is quite frankly that we're kind of doing everything ourselves. So we're a team of two. It's just Danny and I. We do have, some people express an interest in kind of volunteering and doing some work on the side. So I finally took one individual up on that, and they're going to be helping me with some of the social media sort of things, just like coming up with ideas for content. But I've always been a full-time student. I've not taken a break between my undergrad and then my master's and then my doctorate. So I'm always in school, and school is busy. And then of course, in season, Danny's really, really busy with a bit of an unpredictable schedule. And then we're also not together. So him and I are coordinating everything for our foundation over text and FaceTimes and things like that. So just the logistics of running an organization that, you know, it grew really quickly, which obviously is what we wanted. But trying to find that balance of keeping up with it and keeping up with the growth while also recognizing that both of us have very, very busy lives. With our work and school and careers outside of it too. And so it's something that I try, and I wish I had more time to dedicate to it. Like that's definitely a goal in the future, is to have a little bit more time dedicated to it. But right now, sort of the biggest challenge, I guess you could say, is just that it's just us two, and we have to figure everything out on our own. So I'm hoping that changes. Hopefully, we get to a point where maybe we can, bring like an intern or someone onto our team and have just an extra set of hands to help out with stuff. But for right now, it's really kind of just the two of us, and it's been fun, but also tough at times.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like a lot of work. And like you said, it's not the easiest to communicate through like text messages or
Yeah.
FaceTime. But honestly, I just want to say again, you guys are doing an amazing job. And
Thanks.
on that, if you had any like advice that you'd give maybe someone else who wanted to start, an organization of the same sorts, or like a piece of advice you'd give yourself whilst you started, what would that kind of look like to you?
Ooh, I feel like the biggest thing that I would say is just to go for it. Like, when we were sort of in the planning stages and talking about starting something, that we could think of so many reasons not to. You know what I mean? Like it's really easy to be like, oh, well, maybe I won't have time, or oh, maybe people won't pay attention to it, or maybe people won't find it interesting, or find it like weird or whatever that we're like trying to do these things, or I don't know, right? Like I think you can constantly kind of come up with excuses and like convince yourself to not go for it and try something. But I can say that the past year of running this organization has been so fulfilling, and just like I said, it's grown a lot faster than we thought, which um, is incredible. And we've been given opportunities that I never thought we would have been given when we started this, like opportunities to speak at events, to be featured as like keynote presenters, to be, featured in articles with like big, big organizations. Like those are things that we never really imagined were going to happen. And we kept kind of talking ourselves out of it for a long time because we just didn't know if it was going to get the recognition, the traction, the support really that it ended up getting. And so biggest piece of advice to anyone thinking about it is go for it. If you have an idea, chances are it's because it's needed, right? Like if you have an idea to start an organization, it's probably coming from somewhere of like you've noticed a gap um, that you want to try to fill. And like, don't let your own brain like talk you out of it, because we did for a while. And there were other valid reasons like COVID and the draft and everything that obviously wasn't just our thoughts blocking us. It was like actual things. But there was also a lot of just, we need to go for it. We need to hit the post button. We need to create the Instagram account. We can't hold ourselves back anymore if this is something we really want to do. So that's my biggest piece of advice. Just do it. You're gonna, you have an idea, go for it. Worst thing that happens is it kind of falls apart, and then you reset and regather and figure it out. But I think it's worth it to give it a try.
That's amazing. And So you said so Danny got drafted to Winnipeg Jets. How did you feel? Like what was draft day like for you guys?
Uh, chaos. It really wasn't bad. Our draft was in Montreal, and we are from the Toronto area, which is ironic because neither one of us live there right now, but that is home. Um, so it's only like a 5 hour, 6 hour drive. So we actually drove to the draft, which was a bit of a unique experience. Like if our draft had been, I mean, this past year was in Nashville, we would have had to fly, so that would definitely would have changed things a little. So we drove. Danny left a couple days before we did, and then I went down with his family, and we all stayed in a hotel, like with his agency and everything. Um, Honestly, the whole experience went by really quickly. I was only there for 2 days. Like we got there on one night, the next night was like the first round, and then the day after was like rounds 2 through 7, and then we went home. So he went on the second day. He was drafted in the third round, 77th overall. Um, and it was, I mean, it was stressful. I think a lot of people think that players kind of know maybe like or have like a bit of an inkling as to where they're going to go. I would say unless you're first overall or like top 2 or 3, and even then sometimes it's up in the air, like you don't know. Um, there were teams that had told us they were really, really interested, and then for one reason or another ended up not picking him. And then a team like Winnipeg, he had spoken to, he had an interview with them at the combine back in June, so like a couple weeks before the draft. But that was really the only communication we had had with that team. So it wasn't like we were, Winnipeg was up to the plate to make their pick and we were like, this is it. You know what I mean? Like we didn't have that feeling. Um, so definitely a lot of nerves. Danny was someone who had an interesting kind of draft year in terms of rankings, which I don't think those rankings are ever 100% accurate. So you kind of have to take them with a grain of salt when they come out. But it's kind of all you have. So of course you're going to look at them and kind of see, where people are guessing you're going to end up. And there were lists that had him as high as I want to say 20th overall, like first round. And then there were lists that had him in the third round, right? And so we had literally no idea what to expect. I think where he ended up going may have been a little bit later than we thought, which could have happened for any number of reasons, right? Like decisions that are made on night one in the first round have a ripple effect down the line too. So again, you just literally never know. So sitting there on draft day was stressful because you have no idea what's coming. And it kind of just becomes a like waiting game of like, okay, when are we gonna get to go? Like, when are we gonna get to stand up? Like, I've been in this seat for a really long time, and day two moves really fast too. So it's like you don't want to like get up. You can't like leave your seat to like go to the bathroom or grab a bottle of water because it's like at any second, like a minute difference, his name could be getting called. So that was a lot. Obviously, when his name was finally called, I mean, it was probably one of the best experiences we've ever had. Like I still remember that moment really vividly. If you asked him, he'd say he completely blacked out. Like he doesn't remember anything past like giving us hugs and then walking down the stairs. I remember it. I was crying, slightly embarrassing, but it's fine. um, I started to cry. He gave me a hug and it was really cute. And then, yeah, we just got to like reunite with him in the family lounge after and got to meet like a bunch of the people from the team. And I had like amazing conversations with like heads of player development and all of the scouts, the owner of the team, like everyone was upstairs in the suite. I got to meet all of them too, which was really nice. Um, so just kind of a whirlwind of a day, like started out so stressful and then just became so exciting. And then probably the most special thing was that, again, like I said, Montreal's close. So we got to drive. And so right after the draft, like we went up to the suite, we met everyone, and then we drove home. So I got in the car with Danny for 5 hours, just the two of us, and we drove home. And I think honestly, that was like the best feeling. Like he was sitting there driving his car wearing his jersey and just like looking over at him, like he just couldn't stop smiling, and it was the cutest thing ever. And like we were just kind of sitting there, like, you just got drafted, and he's like, yeah, I just got drafted to the NHL, and like it kind of didn't sink in right away. Um, So that was really sweet and really exciting. And then, of course, we got home and celebrated with everyone. I had like a little surprise party planned for him for the next day. So it was a wonderful experience. I'm very thankful that I got to be there. Started out again very stressful, but ended on a high note. And I genuinely don't think things could have worked out any better in terms of where he ended up getting drafted to. Um, yeah.
That's really cool. I feel like, yeah, a lot of the players I think tend to just kind of like black out when they hear their name. So it's really nice to hear like, from someone else's point of view how they felt. And just another random question. I noticed you have his jersey at the back, number 17.
Yeah.
Gets drafted 77th, you say? So is seven kind of now like a special number, would you say?
Yeah, it definitely has kind of turned into that. When he was little, he was 97. And then when he moved to Canada, and started playing over here, that number was actually taken by somebody else. So then he shaved off the seven and went to 90. And I thought that that was kind of going to be his thing for a while. And then he started junior and he switched to number nine, which he really didn't like. So then 17 became available in his second year of junior and he snatched it. The jersey I have behind me is actually from when he played for the U17s Team Canada, which I would argue is probably one of his best tournaments slash like weekends of hockey to date. He was on fire. I think he was one of the leading goal scorers on the team. The team itself, I'm trying to think, I think that was the tournament where they lost a little earlier than expected. Like they had a pretty stacked team and somehow managed to get knocked out in like the quarterfinals. But he had a really good tournament. And so I think that was like, oh, like he just got 17. He got handed 17. And he was like, huh, maybe this is a thing that I need to go with. Like, I was 97, now keep the seven instead of the nine and go for 17. So he was 17 for the latter half of his junior career. And then, yeah, the draft to 77th overall was really interesting. It it's starting to seem like sevens might be a thing that we want to keep our eye on moving forward. But
Mhm.
yeah, so he, as of right now at least, has been assigned 17 on the Manitoba Moose. So assuming he's with them this season, that also should be his number there. The Jets it's taken, but that's okay. We'll figure it out.
As long as there's a seven in the jersey, we got it covered.
We got it. I think so. I think that's kind of the direction that we're moving in is as long as there's a seven, I think we might be okay.
That's good. And another question you probably get so often is how did you and Danny actually meet?
Yeah, we do get that question a lot too. So we actually met through technically, I guess, my brother, but really just like hockey in general. So my brother is about 2.5 years younger than me, same age as Danny. And when Danny moved to Canada, he was playing on the same spring hockey team as my brother. So my family knew him, knew his family and all those sorts of things. And him and my brother became pretty good friends. And after a couple years of playing on separate teams during the regular season, but kind of coming together in the spring, they eventually got on the same regular season team. And that's kind of when I met him. So my family's known Danny since the boys were like 9, 10 years old. I met him when he was like 12 and I was like 14 or something. And so we've known each other for like 9 years. Like it's been a long time.
That's a long time.
Um, yeah, really long. Like almost half of our lives, which is kind of crazy. Um, so we've known each other for a very long time. We were just kind of friends. Like, I mean, when you're only like a couple years apart from your siblings, I feel like sometimes your friend groups kind of mesh a little bit. Like my brother is reasonably close with some of my friends, and like I became close with some of his friends, and like at least we had each other's friends like on social media and stuff. Like when people are hanging out at your house all the time, you kind of all hang out together, you know what I mean? So I became close with a handful of guys on his team. Um, and like didn't really think anything of it, to be honest with you. after 2 years of playing on the same regular season team, Danny actually decided to leave and go play for a different team in the same league. So he was still around, but it's not like I was seeing him every week. That caused a little bit of a rift too, just in some of the friendships between guys on the team. So like it's not like he was coming over to my house as often or at all and stuff like that. So I at that point actually thought I wasn't sure what Danny and I's friendship was going to look like past that point. Um, and when it stayed, like when we continued to be talking all the time and, we'd FaceTime sometimes and be like, how's it going? Like, I miss seeing you and like all that kind of stuff. That's kind of when I knew I was like, oh, like this is a friendship that extends beyond convenience. And so we stayed in touch for a number of years and I think just became closer. Like he very quickly became somebody that I really felt like I could trust. And he would open up to me about things that I highly doubt he was opening up to other people about. And so our relationship just grew really strong over time. He became one of my best friends. And then a few years ago, just kind of like sat down. We were like, oh, I don't know. And then we hung out once, and that was kind of it. So we've been together for a while, and we've been friends for even longer. So he is obviously a very important person to me. I think I'm probably pretty important to him too. And so yeah, he's best friend, boyfriend, business partner now too, all kind of wrapped up into one little package. So
That's so cute. I think that's nice. It must have made like for maybe a little bit of an awkward but easy transition into like starting to date each other, and then you've known each other for so long, so being business partners, it must be like pretty simple, or is it harder?
yeah. It's been pretty easy. I think early on, like literally first day of launch and maybe kind of the week after, there was a couple little hiccups where we were like trying to figure out, not like stepping on each other's toes and like just kind of figuring out how to best work together in a new setting. Like, um, that got ironed out very quickly, and now it's really not an issue at all. Like I handle more of the behind the scenes, making the content, getting us, if we have a speaking engagement, I'm the one who kind of puts together our slides and does all that stuff again because I'm literally in school for the things that we're talking about. He
Mhm.
does more of the like public outward side. So of course, just being with the Jets and everything, he does a lot of interviews. He has a lot of people reaching out to him. Like he can kind of promote and he's more responsible, I think, for that kind of outreach component. So we very much so have figured it out, not without a couple hiccups early on, but I think that's to be expected when you introduce a completely new dynamic into your relationship.
Well, that's nice. I mean, so far it seems you guys have been working really well together. You got a lot accomplished. um I think, yeah, that's definitely a plus. And do you think maybe like the platform that you guys have, like him being a professional player, like that kind of helps your foundation, like make it more known to the public?
Yeah, definitely. I think so much of the growth that we've been able to accomplish in the past year is because he has this platform and he uses it in that way. Um, that's a big reason, truthfully, why it made sense to launch it after the draft, right? Like there were people paying attention that maybe weren't, he didn't know he existed prior, right? Suddenly we have a whole new community of fans and athletes in a completely different province that we didn't really have access to before. Um, so that's been really helpful. And like, I think as a team and as an organization, the Jets have also been really supportive. Like, even when we first launched it, they were reposting everything on their social media. They had one of their reporters reach out to Danny and write an article within 24 hours of us hitting post on our first ever thing. Um, they've invited him on Teams, like the Teams podcast to talk about it. Um, they ask him about it in a lot of interviews for like media stuff. So they've also been really supportive, and both of his OHL teams were also really supportive. So it's been nice because he himself has kind of a platform, but then who he's affiliated with at any given time also has a platform, usually a bigger one. And they've been able to kind of use that to help us get it out there too. So it's been really nice to have that support.
That's nice. And so you said he's got two different OHL teams. Has like did him being traded, was it like kind of a weird situation for you guys, or how did you firstly how did you find out, and then how did you feel about it?
It's a good question. Their season, so he was drafted to Guelph. We had been with Guelph the whole time. Guelph was all we knew, and we loved Guelph. Um, their season started out with them being probably the highest ranked team in the OHL, with just the sheer volume, the number of signed drafted players that they had on their team. They could not win a game to save their life at the beginning of the season. It
Okay.
just did not start the way that anyone expected it to. Um, it became pretty clear early on that there was something going on, like whether it was just the lack of chemistry, maybe it was coaching, maybe it was a mix of a whole bunch of things. Like I'm just kind of speculating here, where
Mhm.
things just were not clicking. We were not producing the way that people expected us to produce. So it started to become clear probably by October, November that they were going to start to ship out some of their higher value guys and get picks for rebuilding for a future run. Um, so I think it might have been in November, probably Danny's closest friend on the team, or one of his closest friends on the team, Sasha, passed a job, who was a second, third, I should know that. I want to say third round pick of the Anaheim Ducks in 2021, the year before Danny. Um, he was traded to Sarnia in November. And for us, that was like, okay, you're next. There was really no question about it. They weren't going to hang on to him and, keep him in a system that wasn't working in what was more than likely going to be his last year of junior, especially when you could get such a high return for a player like that. So we had known that it was out there for a while. I think a lot of people did, especially once Sasha was shipped out. We just didn't really know when. The OHL trade deadline, I think it's like the second week of January. So if it was going to happen, it was going to happen prior to that. Um, I think it was, I don't know why I remember this so vividly. I think it was January 2nd. I
Okay.
had literally just gotten back from Cuba. I had been in Cuba for like 5 days. He had also signed his NHL contract 2 days before that on December 30th.
Okay.
And we were actually sitting in a hockey rink in Guelph watching my little cousin play hockey. So my little cousin, he's like 9 or 10, and he was playing against the Guelph team. So we were like, oh, I'll go with them. I'll meet you there. You'll meet us at the rink and we can watch him play. He would love to have you there. And my aunt and uncle had actually told his teammates, like my little cousin's teammates, being like, we have Danny here today. Like he can come meet you guys after, whatever. So in the middle of the game, between periods, I have to go to the bathroom. So I'm like, Danny, let's go. Like, show me where the bathroom is. We're walking in the hallway, and all of a sudden his phone rings, and it's the GM, and it's like 7 p.m. on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. So we were like, he looked at me and he's like, this is it. Like, I'm done. And I was like, you're joking. So he takes the call, and then
Mhm.
he turns to me and he's like, I need to leave right now. Like, I need to go to the rink. So he ups and leaves in the middle of the game, which is a really fun, like, had to explain that to my cousin after why he just suddenly wasn't there anymore. I felt kind of bad. um, but we couldn't say anything because, like, it wasn't public yet.
Okay.
So, like, we couldn't tell, like, we couldn't say, like, out loud, like, Danny just got traded, he needs to leave, because if somebody else heard it suddenly, whatever. So he left and found out that he was being traded to Kitchener, which was probably the best case scenario. I didn't, I think I would have been a lot more impacted by it had it been a team further, but Kitchener is literally 20 minutes away from Guelph.
Okay.
Um, so I was kind of like, okay. So he was traded to Kitchener, and then he went home that night and had to pack up his stuff. Um, my aunt and uncle dropped me off at his billets. We didn't know if he was going to be allowed to stay at the same billets or have to switch houses. So I was kind of like half saying bye to them, but also like hoping he would stay. Um, and I basically, he was calling like 50 million people. Like he had phone calls with Guelph people, with the new Kitchener people. He had to call the Jets at one point. Like it was a whole thing. And I'm just sitting there packing everything into a suitcase, trying to help out as best as I can because being traded to Kitchener meant the next day he was leaving for a 5-day road trip. So he was gone. Like, um, so that was kind of it. I said bye to him. I was flying back to Boston like 2 days later. So I said bye to him and went home. And then the next morning at like 7 a.m., he was in his car with everything packed, driving to Kitchener to get on a bus and leave to go to Sault Ste. Marie. Um, and then it was announced, and fans were I don't think shocked, but still sad, which made me sad because I loved Guelph and I really loved their fans there. So seeing kind of the reaction of the community, I was like, oh, that breaks my heart. Um, but he still has such a good relationship with so many of the guys in Guelph, with the coaches in Guelph. Like there was no bad blood or anything after this trade. He's actually gone and seen people since and everything, and it's nice. So I know that'll be a relationship we maintain. Um, but it was sad in the moment to be leaving a place that we had called home for so long. Um, but Kitchener was a really good experience. I think it challenged him in a lot of new ways. So it was exciting. I firmly believe that the Kitchener rink, the Odd, is the best rink in junior hockey. I made it there for a playoff game in April. I've never heard a rink so loud. Like that was such a cool experience. So everything happens for a reason is kind of my motto in life. And the trade came with its own set of challenges, but welcomed ones. And yeah, so it was crazy. It was a crazy week, like contract signing, trade, everything, but it worked out. And now we're here.
Exactly. And beginning of the year, that's just like so much happening in such a short space of time. That is
Yeah.
actually really crazy.
Yep. It was Christmas. I left for vacation. He signed his contract while I was in Cuba, and 3 days later he was traded. And I was like, time needs to just, we need to chill for a minute. I just need to catch my breath.
Yeah. So I think another question based on, your relationship with Danny, do you have like a custom jacket? Like, I guess you could say a white jacket.
Yeah, I do. I actually have two.
Okay.
Um, One is a black denim jacket. I think there's a picture of it on my like Instagram and TikTok and stuff because that's the one I had last season.
Mhm.
Um, it's actually hand painted by a designer in Toronto. I think her Instagram handle is Original Jeans, spelt like genetic genes, like Genes,
Okay.
Toronto or TO. Um, I reached out to her and was like, hey, like, is this something that you do? Like, your work is so good, and I would love to support, a local small business, like a local creator. And she was like, oh my gosh, I've never done one of these before, but like 100% yes, I'll do it. Like, let's make something. So she worked with me to design a jacket. I was going for something kind of simple, but also that was like really special. So that jacket to me is one that like I would love to like let's say we end up with a different team in the future with like a trade or free agency or whatever, like add to it kind of as we progress throughout his career. Um so right now it's like a black denim jacket. It says his name across the back. It has a couple little stars spread throughout it because I call him superstar, so I thought that was cute. Um, it has Zhilkin Vision in like the gold at the bottom, so that's also really cool. Like it has our like brand on it.
Mhm.
And then hidden throughout the jacket, like they're like on the sleeve cuffs or like inside the pocket, are these little messages that have kind of just become part of our like game day routine. Like they're texts essentially that I send to him before every single game. So those are kind of like tucked away throughout the jacket, which I love. I think that's just like such a special thing and so unique to us. And then one sleeve has a Guelph thing and then a Kitchener thing, and then the other sleeve has the Jets thing. So it kind of has like commemorative like things from each of the teams he's been a part of and organizations he's been a part of so far. So that was my first one. I love that one. Um, yeah, I wore that one to the only playoff game that I got to last year with Kitchener, and got a lot of compliments on it. Like people were like, "Oh my gosh, that's so cool! Like, did you paint that?" And I was like, "No, this person did. Like, she did such a good job." So, I love that one. And then the second one, my friend Brandy, who she does customs, her business honestly has grown so much. She's done customs for a ton of AHL teams, like playoff jackets. She's done like individual customs for WAGs, not just in hockey, but all across the board. She's worked with girls that are like out in Europe with their boyfriends or husbands. So her work is like it's booming.
Mhm.
Um, and so she actually, her and I've kind of become friends over social media. And she actually was willing to make me kind of a jacket as almost like a welcome to the NHL gift. Um, so it's a puffer because Winnipeg is cold, and I figured I would need a coat. Um, and it has his initials like DZ and like this beautiful royal blue, like glittery lettering on the back. Because that sort of like dark royal blue is the color of both the Jets and the Moose. So we kind of refrained from putting a number on it just because, again, as of right now, he's 17 on the Moose, but like let's say he got called up for a game, we know 17 is taken on the Jets, and I don't really want to walk into the rink with the 17 on my jacket, and that's kind of wonky. So we opted to put his initials on it, so it's versatile. And then across his initials is actually his signature. So she was able to, I don't know how she did it, but he basically signed a piece of paper and I sent it to her, like a picture of it, and she made it into like a print to put on the jacket. So it's really simple, really nice, like a cream puffer with just his initials and signature, but I love it. And I haven't had the chance to wear that one yet, obviously, because I got it a month ago, 2 months ago, and we're starting the season tonight. So it'll be worn at some point, but I'm so excited. So I have two, and I love them both.
Great. Maybe you can wear the jacket when he gets called up this season.
Yeah, yeah. I'm hoping again, assuming he's out in Winnipeg, which we expect him to be with the Moose, then I'm planning on making a trip out in December. So that'll be kind of the Jackets debut, I guess you could say, at least out in Winnipeg.
That'd be really cute. I think
Yeah.
I love that idea though. The duality of the two jackets, you know. I think it's really great. Um,
Yeah.
and like I just want to kind of take it back to you and your choice to do sports psychology. Kind of what was your like school journey for that?
A
If
long one. Um, yeah, so I started my undergrad right after high school, and I went to a school called McMaster University.
Mhm.
I was in the health sciences program, which is a pretty well-known program, at least in Canada. Um, a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people leave that program and go into med school or some other like very healthcare adjacent field. So it could be med school or public health or physician assistant or pharmacy, dental, like stuff like that. Um, and that's at first kind of what I thought I was going to do too, to be honest with you. Um, I very quickly learned that I just don't think my values, my personality, and kind of just my interests like fully aligned with the med school path. Um, and so I had taken a handful, and I mean not many, psych courses in my undergrad. And I was like, I always found them really interesting. They were tough, but I really liked them. So in my third year, I took another class that was mental health focused. And my final project was to write a paper on anything related to mental health. And it literally could have been anything. And so I chose to write it on performance anxiety in young athletes. And my professor at the time got me connected with a sports psychologist in Toronto, who I reached out to and had a couple of chats with. And she very much so kind of took me under her wing and became a mentor. And that's really when I realized I was like, exactly what I want to do, which is, one box working with athletes, second box mental health psychology, check and check, I'll be a sports psychologist. But looking in Canada, not that many people were doing it, and there was like really no training for it. Um, so I started looking elsewhere, and this mentor of mine directed me to Boston University because she had done her PhD there in clinical psychology. And I was like, huh. So I looked, and they had this program, and it was a master's of education in counseling psychology, but there was a sports psychology track. So the program was divided into three streams, and the largest stream was sports psychology. So you would take all of these counseling psychology, mental health focused courses, and you were taking, sports psychology courses, teaching mental skills to athletes, like things like that. And I was like, that's perfect. So I ended up applying. I got in. I moved to Boston right after my undergrad. So I graduated McMaster in May of 2021 and started at BU that same September. So then I was at Boston University for 2 years doing my master's. I worked with a bunch of different like college sports teams there, which was probably the best experience I've ever had. I worked with, I worked at a partial hospital program for my clinical internship, which really taught me a lot about kind of more the clinical mental health side of things. And then decided that I wanted to do my doctorate. I just think in order to do what I want to do in the future, especially in Canada, I needed a doctoral degree. And I also felt like there were some kind of gaps in my training from my master's that I felt like I needed to fill before I really got out into the world. So I applied and got into James Madison, which I'm very fortunate to have gotten in. Um, and now I'm here. So I'll be here for the next 3 years doing courses and stuff. And then year four will be an internship that I hope to return to Canada for. And then I'll graduate and I'll be a doctor. And then I'll write a bunch of exams and be a psychologist.
Hey.
So yeah, it's a long haul. I mean, by the time I'm done, I'm gonna be 10 years of post-secondary education, which is a lot to do all at once, but it'll
Mhm.
be worth it.
That's great. I mean, I think one thing, I mean, from what I've seen, a lot of people kind of have a set path that they know they want to take. But with you, I guess it started off somewhere, but you kind of branched out into a different direction. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Exactly. Like, I think one thing that's always resonated with me is the idea of working with like athletic populations. Like, even when I wanted to be a doctor, it was always, oh, I want to be a sports psych physician, or not a sports psych, a sports med physician.
Mhm.
So that's always remained constant. Just the lens at which I'm helping those people now is different. It's no longer physical health, it's mental. So, um, yeah, so like I've always had interests and passions for that sort of thing, but again, kind of the way that I'm doing it is a little different now, which took me a long time to figure out, which I think can also be a valuable lesson. Like you don't have to have all the answers when you're 16 starting school, you can, or 17, you can kind of figure it out as you go.
Okay. Totally unrelated, but I'm in my senior year of high school, so
hmm
I've been looking into like what I want to do and sports psych since like I don't know, probably like 2 years ago. That's been like my main focus of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was like, when I was reading up like on you and I saw that you're doing this, I was like, this is what I want to do too. This is like Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
It's a good time to have this interest because let me tell you, like the field is growing so rapidly. Like so many more professional teams and organizations and colleges and things are finally recognizing that this is important and like bringing people on their staff to like provide these services. So it's a good time to be interested in this field because it's a field that's going to continue to grow as the years go by, and there's always going to be something to do. So
Yeah,
it's exciting.
it's definitely like, I don't know, psychology in general, like figuring out how the mind works.
It's
It's
fascinating.
really, it's really fascinating. And then, I don't know, I guess if you're like in a very, if you grow up being very sports orientated, you kind of want to stay like working with sports. So I know, I guess combining the two of them, it's a good idea and really beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I sort of my philosophy that I take when I'm working with people is like I fundamentally don't think that you can perform your best if you're not mentally at your best, right? And that's training your brain to be able to function effectively in a high pressure situation like a competition or a game, but it's also taking care of your mental health. And that's really why I didn't want to, just be a sports psych. I didn't want to just be a clinical psychologist. I really wanted to tackle both so that I can sit in front of an athlete and not have to tell them, wait, that's not sport related, we can't talk about that, right? I wanted to be able to do everything. So that's the goal in the future, is to kind of be very holistic, which is exciting. So
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I've got no further questions or anything. So I just want to say thank you again for coming on and for reaching out. It's
yeah,
amazing and I really appreciate it.
absolutely. Yeah, thank you for having me. And I mean, it sounds like your sort of interests and goals and stuff are similar to the path that I'm on right now and taking. So if you ever have questions, need anything, and that goes for people listening too, feel free to reach out. I promise I'm not scary.
Of course, you're very, very sweet, honestly.
Thanks.
And yeah, thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you as well. And
Best of luck.
you too. I hope, with especially with the foundation, I hope everything goes well with your
Thanks.
studies as well. And have fun watching. You're gonna watch Jen's game right after this in the end.
Yeah, he's playing in the Young Stars tournament because all that's happening this weekend, kind of across the board. So the Jets are out in British Columbia with the Canucks, the Oilers, and the Flames. So I think they're playing the Oilers, and then Canucks on Sunday, Flames on Monday, if I'm remembering correctly. So it'll be a hockey-filled few days, which is good because I've been in withdrawal for the past couple months, not having anything to watch. Um, so yeah, he'll be rocking the Jets jersey tonight, which is exciting always. And we'll see how this weekend goes, and then camp and hopefully first pro season.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. I mean, I'll definitely keep a lookout for his jersey. Hopefully, see a number
Yeah.
there somewhere.
No, his Jets number right now is 56. It
Oh,
was just kind of they just kind of get handed a number during their first training camp. So last September, when he showed up in Winnipeg for the first time, they were like, here you go. It was number 56. So we're rolling with it. I guess it's close to seven. Like the six is close to seven. So it's okay. If he's on the team full time in the future, I think he'll get some say in changing it up. But for now, we're gonna roll with 56 for the weekend, and then hopefully he'll get 17 back if he's with the Moose this year.
yeah. I mean, 56, it's not that bad a number.
I've always just said it's random. Like I don't know many other hockey players that are 56. If anyone does, let me know. But yeah, I can't think of another 56, which is fun. I like that it's unique, but we have
Mhm.
a relationship with the sevens apparently. So one of these days we'll get it back.
I think off the top of my head, I want to say Eric Howla on the Devils is 56.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't pay a ton of attention to specifics like that in terms
I
of like who is who, but interesting. So there is another one.
maybe I'm not too sure. I think like it's just something that I've come across, so I'm assuming he's 56.
Yeah, there's gotta be somebody like in a league of however many people. There's gotta be another 56 out there, but not that I've personally seen or seen anyone choose like back when they could kind of choose their numbers in like youth hockey. Um, so yeah, eventually we'll get a seven in there, 77, 17, something, but gotta get it back.
That's true. Yeah. So thank you again. Yeah. And
Absolutely.
have a good rest of your day.
Yeah. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. And
And
you too.
thanks.
So I kind of searched up players who were number 56, and Eric Halla is one of them. Then you have Sergei Zubov, um, Kevin Fiala also wore that number, Nikita Kucherov, and there are a whole lot of other players who wore number 56. So yeah, that's great. And yeah, that's I guess that's the end of this episode. And stay tuned for next week's episode.